The rain in Greyhaven doesn't just fall, it attacks. It's a cold, driving assault that turns the neon signs of the city into blurry watercolors and makes the asphalt smell like wet rust and old secrets. Tonight, I was supposed to be above it. I was working the Silver Linings Gala at the Luma Tower, a glass and steel spike that punctured the new Cascadia skyline. The name was a joke. The only silver lining here was the kind you stitched into the pockets of the city's elite, my catering company. Saffron and Flint was handling the event. For me, a part-time gig. For them, a command performance. My black and white uniform felt stiff, a size too small across the shoulders. But it was clean. That's all that mattered. I needed this job. I needed it more than I needed to breathe. My final year's tuition at the North Meridian Institute of Culinary Arts was looming, a dark mountain of debt. And worse, my adoptive mom's prescription refills at the Mercy Bluff Clinic were waiting. The clinic was patient, but the loan shark who'd fronted me the cash for last month's payment wasn't. His call this afternoon had been short and chilling. He wanted his $500, plus interest, by tomorrow, or he'd come to the clinic to check on my mom. So I smiled. I balanced trays of champagne flutes and intricate little bites of food I'd spent all last semester learning to deconstruct. I smiled at bankers and tech billionaires. I smiled at the stony-faced officials from the Bureau of Civic Integrity, the BCI, who were here to rub elbows with the very men they were supposed to be investigating. The whole tower hummed with the sound of polite lies. And then I saw him. You don't just see Gennaro Caruso. You feel the atmospheric pressure change. He was standing near the centerpiece, a swirling sculpture of chrome, but he was the real art. He wore a tuxedo that was probably worth more than my tuition. Tailored so perfectly it looked molded to him. He was younger than the legends suggested, with dark hair swept back and eyes that seemed to absorb all the light in the room. When he wasn't loud, he was the opposite. It was the silence in the middle of the storm. The Caruso Syndicate, the name was whispered in Greyhaven with a mix of fear and respect. They said he was a ruthless disciplinarian, a gentleman who could order a man's ruin before finishing his espresso. Tonight, he was just a man, laughing quietly with a BCI commissioner. The irony was so thick you could choke on it. I kept my head down, collected empty glasses, and tried to melt into the background. My focus was on the clock. Just a few more hours, get paid. Survive tomorrow. Then the night cracked open. It started with a gasp and the sound of breaking glass. Julien, the head sommelier from Saffron and Flint, was on the floor near the wine vault, clutching his chest. His face was a waxy, terrifying shade of gray. People backed away, a circle of expensive shoes and silk hems. My supervisor, Rich, was sweating. Mara Linwood, he hissed, grabbing my arm, his fingers dug in. Julian's down. The Argent number 7. Caruso's table. They're waiting for it. My blood went cold. Rich, I can't. I'm not certified for that bottle. That's a $5,000 wine. I don't care if it's $1 million wine. You're the only one here who even knows which end of a corkscrew to use. Get it. Pour it. Do not mess this up. He shoved me toward the vault. My heart was a trapped bird. The wine vault was a floor-to-ceiling glass cube, a library of liquid gold and deep ruby. The rain hammered against the skylight high above, a relentless pounding metronome. Thump, thump, thump like my pulse. The bottles of Argent number 7 were on their own climate-controlled shelf. Julian had already prepped one, but it had shattered when he fell. My hands were shaking. I grabbed the backup bottle from the rack. Argent number 7. My culinary training kicked in. A small island of calm in my panic. Check the label. Check the foil. I sliced the foil cleanly and inserted the corkscrew. It felt wrong. The cork offered slightly too much resistance, then gave way with a soft thwip instead of a satisfying pop. A smell hit me. Faint. Not cork taint, not oxidation. Almonds, bitter almonds. It was there for a split second, a tiny, screaming warning, before it was swallowed by the wine's proper bouquet, rich dark cherry, and a deep, earthy note of toasted walnut. I paused. sniffing the bottle's lip. Just walnut now. The pressure from Rich, the sight of Caruso's table waiting. The thought of that $500, I pushed the doubt down. I was just stressed. It was my imagination. I poured a small tasting measure into a glass, swirled it. The color was deep garnet. The legs were slow and thick. It looked perfect. I set the bottle on a silver tray, my hand so damp the tray almost slipped. I walked toward his table. It felt like walking a tightrope 1,000 feet up. Gennaro Caruso wasn't looking at me. He was listening to the BCI man, his head tilted, a small, polite smile on his face. But as I approached, that smile vanished. His eyes swiveled and locked onto me. The room, the rain, the murmur of the crowd, it all dissolved. There was only that stare. It wasn't predatory, it was analytical. He saw everything. He saw the slight tremor in my wrist as I reached for his glass, a tremor born of pure, distilled fear, fear of the loan shark, fear of failing, fear of this man. I began to pour. The dark red liquid streamed into his glass. He didn't break eye contact. He simply lifted his hand, his fingers brushing the stem of the glass, and he paused. He hadn't tasted it. He hadn't even lifted it. He just stared at me, his gaze dropping for a fraction of a second to my trembling hand, then snapping back to my eyes, a single question, unspoken, hung in the air. Then he looked down, into the glass, and he froze. "Stop," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the entire gala. I looked at the glass. The wine, it was changing. A faint, oily swirl, a subtle lightening of the deep red. His lips, moments ago curved in a polite smile, were now a thin, pale line. It happened in a single, terrible second. His eyes shot to the security chief by the door at the exact same instant. The chief's earpiece crackled. I saw the man's own face pale. "Sir," the chief shouted, "the system's breached the locks." Gennaro didn't wait. He slammed his palm down on a small, discreet button set into the underside of the table. A button I'd never known was there. His voice was pure ice. Lockdown. A deafening whir filled the air, followed by the catastrophic final slam of metal on metal. Steel gates, unseen until this moment, shot down over the main doorways. Heavy glass partitions slid from the ceiling, sealing the vault, the balconies, the entire floor. The rain on the roof was the only sound for a heartbeat. Then came the screaming. The crowd surged, a wave of tuxedos and gowns breaking against the new steel walls. Panic bloomed, ugly and instant. "What is this?" the BCI commissioner yelled, his face purple. Gennaro rose from his chair, smooth as a panther. He ignored the commissioner. He ignored the panic. He was looking at me. And suddenly, his men were there. They hadn't been there a second ago. They just materialized. Men in identical dark suits, moving with a silent, terrifying efficiency. They emerged from the crowd, from the hallways, their jackets parting just enough to show the glint of hard steel nestled against their ribs. The gala guests quieted, their panic replaced by a new, colder fear. Gennaro Caruso didn't look away from me. He took a step, closing the distance between us. My feet were cemented to the floor. The silver tray was still in my hand, the poison bottle sitting on it like a judgment. Who did this? Why this bottle? Why my hand? Was I the target? Was I the frame? I felt the world tilt, my small, desperate life snatched away, pulled into a vortex that was dark and deep and spinning impossibly fast. He stopped, just a foot away. His eyes were unreadable, but they held me, pinned me like a butterfly to a board. He lifted one hand, not to me. He pointed, a single commanding finger. He pointed right at my face. And he spoke to the man beside him, the one with the scar on his jaw. "She's with me." The words hung in the air, heavier than the steel doors that had just sealed our fates. "She's with me." It wasn't a request. It was a transfer of ownership. The man with the scar high on his jaw, a man I would come to know as Ivo Markel, took my arm. He didn't grab me. It was a firm, impersonal grip, a human set of handcuffs. steering me away from the shrieking chaos of the main hall. Gennaro Caruso led the way. He moved like a shadow, parting the panicked crowd without touching anyone. We bypassed the screaming guests and the frantic, red-faced officials from the BCI. He pushed open a service door I'd never noticed, concealed behind a tapestry, and we descended into the building's guts. The opulence of the gala evaporated instantly. The plush carpet was gone, replaced by sterile concrete stairs. The air grew cold, smelling of chilled air circulation, dust and old paint. We ended up in the basement. Art storage was a tomb, lit by humming fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead, casting a pale, sick glow on everything. Crates were stacked to the ceiling. Statues draped in white sheets stood around us like a silent, judging audience. Gennaro turned. The cold light carved sharp planes into his face. He didn't sit. He just watched me, his dark eyes seeming to strip away my cheap uniform, my fear, my flimsy excuses. "The bottle," he said. His voice was quiet, a low vibration that vibrated in my bones. It wasn't a question, it was a command. "From the moment your boss spoke to you, tell me everything." "Julian, he collapsed," I stammered, my voice sounding thin. "I know Julian collapsed." He cut me off. His tone was sharp, impatient, but not loud. "Tell me what you did, every movement, every sound." I took a shaky breath. The image of my mom in that clinic, the loan shark's greasy voice, this felt like the end of my world. Rich, my supervisor, he told me to get the Argent number 7. Julian's bottle was broken on the floor. I went to the vault. I took the backup. "The cork," he said. "The sound." He was terrifyingly specific. It felt wrong. It was too tight. It didn't pop right. It was too quiet. Like it was damp. And the smell. Ivo, who'd been standing by the door like one of the statues, tensed. "What smell?" Gennaro asked, his gaze unwavering. "Almonds," I whispered. "Just for a second, bitter almonds, but then it was gone. It was just wine. It smelled like walnuts. Dark fruit, what it was supposed to smell like. I thought I imagined it." The pressure. "You poured a tasting measure, what?" he stated. "Yes. Into a clean glass. It looked fine. The color was right. The legs were slow. I didn't taste it. We're not allowed." "And you brought it to the table?" "Yes." He was silent for a long moment, processing. He wasn't interrogating me like a cop looking for a confession. He was diagnosing a problem, like a mechanic listening for a fault in an engine. The heavy door to the stairwell burst open, slamming against the concrete wall. The BCI commissioner from upstairs stormed in, his face purple. He was flanked by 2 agents and a severe-looking woman in a sharp gray suit that looked more like armor than clothing. "Caruso, what is the meaning of this?" the commissioner blustered. "You cannot detain federal officers. You will open those doors." The woman in the gray suit stepped forward, ignoring the commissioner's tantrum. Her eyes were chips of ice. "I am Supervisor Annika Rowe, Bureau of Civic Integrity. That girl." She pointed a stiff finger at me, and I flinched. "Is the primary suspect in an assassination attempt. She is coming with us." Gennaro didn't even turn his head fully. He regarded her with a look of profound boredom. "Annika, you're jumpy." "She served you poison," Annika snapped. "Did she?" Gennaro replied, his voice dangerously silky. "Or did she serve me a poison? There's a difference. What's your basis for arresting her, Annika, besides your panic?" "She had possession of the weapon. That's basis enough." "She's a cater waiter," Gennaro said, dismissing the entire BCI with a wave of his hand. "Possession is her job. Ivo, the kit." Ivo moved, producing a small, high-tech aluminum case from under his jacket. He took the poison bottle from the tray, which I just realized I was still holding, my knuckles white. Ivo handled the bottle with gloved hands, inserting a thin probe into the wine. He clicked a scanner, and a small screen on the side lit up with chemical signatures. Ivo grunted. "Just as you thought, sir. Derived cyanate." Gennaro's jaw tightened. I saw a flicker of something, not fear, controlled, cold fury, Orpheus Circle, he said. It wasn't a question. Supervisor Rowe's face went white. Even I, a struggling culinary student, knew that name. The Orpheus Circle. They weren't just mobsters, they were ghosts. Boogeymen whispered about in the dark corners of Greyhaven. They didn't exist until they did. The bottle Julian prepped was clean, Gennaro mused, thinking aloud. This was the backup. Someone had to access the vault after Julian went down, or they planned for him to go down. Ivo, still examining the tray, spoke. Sir, the napkin. I looked. The linen cloth on the silver tray. It was saffron and flint standard issue, white and crisp, but tucked under the bottle. The folded corner had a small, embossed pink floral pattern. That's, I whispered, my brain finally catching up. That's the VIP liner. We only use those for the host's table, for Mr. Caruso's table. We're not supposed to use them for general service. An inside job, Gennaro concluded. He nodded to Ivo, who was already tapping on a tablet, his fingers flying, pulling up the museum's internal security feed. Where were you? Gennaro's eyes snapped back to me. For the 10 minutes before Julian collapsed? The North Corridor, I said, my voice shaking. I was serving appetizers, smoked salmon blinis. Ivo turned the tablet screen. The CCTV footage was grainy, time-stamped just 7 minutes before the lockdown. It showed me, my tray empty, heading back toward the main kitchen. Then another server, a redhead, intercepted me near the hall. Lisa Quinn. I knew her, vaguely. Lisa, I said, pointing. She told me a guest at table 5 needed more champagne, and my tray was empty. She swapped trays with me. She said hers was already prepped for the North Corridor anyway, and it would save me a trip. On the screen, we watched the exchange. We watched Lisa, now holding my original empty tray, walk directly toward the wine vault just out of the camera's range. And I, now holding her tray, turned and went to the bar to get champagne. My blood ran colder than the storage room. She gave me her tray. The tray with the VIP napkin. The tray that was meant for you. The tray, Gennaro finished. That was meant to carry the kill. The door opened again. This time it was my boss, Rich. His face was blotchy, his eyes wide with terror. He saw Gennaro and practically fell to his knees. Mr. Caruso, sir, I swear, Saffron and Flint, we had nothing to do with this. It was her. She must have done it. We do background checks, but we don't employ people like that. She's fired. Obviously, she's fired. He was throwing me to the wolves to save his catering license. Get him out, Gennaro said, his voice flat. Ivo didn't hesitate, grabbing Rich by the collar and hauling him, protesting, back into the stairwell. Annika Rowe stepped forward again, her jaw set. This changes nothing. The redhead is gone. This one, she jabbed her finger at me again, was the final link. She's in BCI custody. She's in my custody, Gennaro stated. The air in the room crackled. Upstairs, we heard a heavy, rhythmic thud. The panic was boiling over. They're trying to break the doors, sir, Ivo said, his hand moving to his earpiece. Gennaro touched his own. Move everyone to the main hall. Ivo, you take Supervisor Rowe and her team. Establish 3 perimeters. Outer ring, all guests. Middle ring, catering staff, museum staff, and security. Inner ring, medical. See to Julian. Find out what they gave him. And her, Annika demanded, her voice sharp. She stays in the middle ring, Gennaro said, with me. I was a clue he wasn't letting out of his sight. We walked back up the stairs. The main hall was chaos contained. His men, the ones in the identical tuxedos, had formed a human barrier, keeping the terrified elite in the center of the room. The air was hot and thick with fear. I suddenly felt dizzy, the adrenaline draining away, leaving a sick, hollow feeling in my stomach. The floor tilted. I stumbled. A hand steadied me. Gennaro's. He didn't just grab my elbow. His hand rested lightly on my back, a firm, warm pressure. Breathe, he commanded, his voice low. I can't. The walls were closing in. He leaned in, his face close to mine. I could smell the clean starch of his shirt and a faint, sharp scent of bergamot. "You are not breathing," he murmured, his eyes fixed on my chest, watching it. In, out. I did. I took a gasping, ragged breath. My heart did a stupid, terrified flip-flop against my ribs. I wasn't a person to him. I was a piece of evidence, a she that was with him, a potential asset or a liability. And yet, his hand was warm on my back, and his focus was absolute. He was checking my breathing, ensuring his key witness wasn't about to faint. That's all it was. A new alarm chirped, not the lockdown alarm, but a high-pitched digital warning. Ivo checked his tablet. "Sir, we have an internal data breach. Someone inside the perimeter is accessing the BCI network and the Luma Tower's private servers. They're piggybacking our connection." Anika gasped. "That's impossible. Our network is closed." "The insider is still active," Gennaro said, his eyes scanning the crowd. "The real target wasn't just him. It was information." He stepped to a nearby podium and picked up the microphone. His voice boomed, amplified, silencing the panicked murmurs in an instant. "Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies for the interruption. It seems we have a security situation. For your safety, no one is leaving." He paused, letting the words sink in. "No one leaves until I know who wanted this girl dead." He set the mic down. The crowd stared, stunned into silence. I grabbed his sleeve. The expensive fabric was smooth under my fingers. "You're wrong," I whispered, my voice hoarse. He looked down at my hand on his suit, his expression unreadable. They weren't trying to kill me," I insisted. "Why me? I'm nobody. My mom, I owe $500 to a loan shark. I'm not a target. They were aiming for you." Gennaro Caruso leaned down, so close his lips nearly brushed my ear. The warmth of his breath was a stark contrast to the glacial cold of his words. "If they were aiming for me, Miss Linwood," he whispered, "they wouldn't have used your hand. They would have used a bomb." A chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning shot down my spine. He was right. A professional hit on him would have been overt, devastating. This was intricate, and this was personal. This was about me. But why? "Lisa Quinn," he said to Ivo. "Find her." Ivo shook his head. "She's not in the catering group. Sir, she's vanished. Not on any security footage leaving. She's just gone." "Of course she has." Gennaro looked back at me. His gaze dropped to my hands. I was still wearing the white cotton service gloves Saffron and Flint made us use, now crumpled and damp. "Wait," I said, my mind racing, catching on a detail. The spill. When Julian fell, his bottle shattered. The wine. I looked down at my right glove. There was a faint reddish-purple stain on the cuff, splashed from Julian's broken bottle. I got splashed when Julian fell, before Rich even talked to me. Gennaro's eyes narrowed. He looked at the poisoned bottle Ivo was holding, now sealed in an evidence bag. "The color," he said. I knew it instantly. My culinary training, my life. It's different. The stain on my glove was a bright, almost magenta red. The poisoned wine in the bottle, the backup bottle, was a deep, dark, almost blackish garnet. "They're not the same vintage," I whispered, the pieces clicking into place. Or the poison completely changed the color of the backup bottle. But the stain on my glove, that's from Julian's bottle, the original bottle, the one that was safe. Gennaro stared at the glove, a spark of understanding in his eyes. "She didn't touch the backup bottle until after she was splashed by the clean one," he processed aloud, more to himself than to me. "The backup was already switched. The cork was already treated. Lisa handed her the kill. I was innocent. The proof was right on my hand." Annika Rowe stepped forward, her face grim. "This is a syndicate matter now. Caruso, the BCI is taking the witness. We'll place her in protection." Gennaro smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen tonight. It was terrifying. It didn't touch his eyes. "The witness is on my property, supervisor, which is currently under private lockdown. Your laws stop at that steel door." Annika put her hand on the grip of her sidearm, holstered at her hip. "Don't test me, Gennaro. This is a BCI-level threat." "I don't need to test you." Gennaro didn't even look at her. He looked at me, his gaze pinning me in place. "Your laws are procedure, Annika. My laws are survival." I was trapped. I was a piece of meat between two starving lions. I was caught between the cold, procedural justice of the BCI and the dark, absolute law of the Caruso Syndicate. One wanted to use me as a witness. The other wanted to use me as bait. I didn't know which one was worse. The standoff between Gennaro Caruso and Annika Rowe felt like it was sucking the air out of the cold storage room. I was the prize they were fighting over. My innocence, proven by a splash of magenta-colored wine, didn't make me free. It just made me more valuable. The stalemate was broken by Ivo. He never raised his voice, but his words cut through the tension. "Sir, Supervisor, the server breach is a bigger problem than we thought." He held up his tablet. I ran the trace. The breach on the BCI network didn't originate here. It came from the service elevator in the main kitchen. But the camera feed, he typed, and his face tightened. "The feed is dead, a full 7-minute blind spot. It started the instant Julian collapsed." "She was covered," Gennaro said, his voice flat. "She didn't just vanish." "It gets worse," Ivo said, his fingers flying across the screen. "The breach is still active. It's not in the kitchen anymore. It's moving. I'm picking up a single heat signature, moving fast, level 3, the Antiquities wing." "She's still in the building," Gennaro said. The predator in him was fully awake now. He looked at his men, then at me. "Ivo, you're with me. 2 of you. Secure the commissioner and his team. Keep them with the main group." He locked his eyes on me. You're coming." "She stays here. Caruso." Annika Rowe stepped forward, her hand on her sidearm. "She's material witness." "She's the target, Annika," Gennaro snapped, his patience gone. "The bait is now live. You want the person who caused this, they're running. And I guarantee they're running from her or to her." He didn't wait for her reply. He gripped my upper arm, the same firm, impersonal hold as before, and pulled me into motion. We moved out of the storage room, back through the service door, and into the pristine, deathly silent corridors of the museum. The panic from the main hall felt a world away. It was just the 3 of us. The sound of our shoes on the marble floor was deafening. Gennaro headed for the grand staircase, a swirling masterpiece of marble and glass. "No," I said. My voice was a reedy whisper, but it stopped him cold. He turned, one eyebrow raised, that stare again, analytical, impatient. I helped with the setup this morning," I stammered, my heart pounding against my ribs. "I got here at 5 a.m. The public stairs they wind. It's the long way. If she's moving fast, she'll beat us. To get from the kitchen to Antiquities, you use the restoration corridor. It's behind that tapestry." I pointed to a massive woven tapestry depicting some ancient, grim battle. A flicker of something surprised respect crossed his face. It was gone in an instant. "Lead." I pulled back the heavy, dust-smelling fabric. A plain, gray-painted steel door was hidden behind it. Ivo opened it, and we plunged into another sterile hallway, this one narrow and smelling of linseed oil and old varnish. We ran. My cheap catering shoes slipped on the polished concrete. We rounded a corner, skidding to a halt. It wasn't Lisa. It was 2 men. They were dressed in functional black tactical gear that screamed wrong. It wasn't the slick, tailored armor of Gennaro's men. This was rougher. On their arms, a patch of stylized, predatory bird, the Kestrel Collective. They raised their weapons, silenced pistols. The air seemed to compress. Before I could even process the threat, Gennaro moved. He was a blur of black and white. He didn't draw a weapon. He didn't hesitate. He shoved me. "Down," he roared. His hand splayed across my back, slamming me against the hard stone wall. The air in my lungs exploded on impact. My head snapped back, but his other hand was already there, cupping the back of my skull, protecting it from the stone. His body became a shield, pressing me into the alcove. The air split with a series of muted foot sounds. It was quiet, anticlimactic, but utterly deadly. I felt the thwack of projectiles hitting the wall just inches from my face, where I had been standing a second before. plaster dust filled my mouth, tasting like chalk. It was over in less than 3 seconds. I heard a wet crack and a heavy thud. Ivo. He had moved past us, a fluid shadow. When Gennaro finally eased his weight off me, I saw one of the Kestrel men on the floor, unmoving. The other was gasping against the far wall, Ivo's hand around his throat, lifting him clear off his feet. Gennaro didn't move for a long second. He was still pressed against me. I could feel the solid, unyielding wall of his chest, the rapid, controlled thump, thump, thump of his heart against my cheek. He smelled warm, of expensive wool and that sharp, clean bergamot. He pulled back, his eyes scanning me. "Are you hit?" I could only shake my head, my throat locked in terror. "Ivo," Gennaro said, his voice perfectly calm as he straightened his tie. "Hired muscle." Ivo grunted, dropping the second man, who slumped to the floor, unconscious. Kestrel Collective. Sloppy. They were a distraction. "Which means she's close," Gennaro said. "She was trying to get to the fire exit." We found her at the end of the hall, clawing frantically at the push bar of a sealed emergency exit. Her red hair was wild, her face pale and streaked with tears. The moment she saw us, she froze, a cornered animal. "It wasn't me," she shrieked, her voice echoing in the narrow corridor. I just swapped the trays. They paid me. They paid off my brother's debt." Gennaro walked toward her, his steps slow and deliberate. "Who hired you, Lisa?" Ivo was already patting her down, his movements quick and professional. He felt something at her neck, tucked inside her uniform blouse. "Sir." "Necklace." He ripped it off. It wasn't a cheap locket. It was a small, brushed steel USB drive, stylized like a feather. He plugged it into his tablet. "What's on it?" Gennaro asked, his eyes never leaving Lisa's terrified face. Ivo's eyebrows shot up. "It's schematics, blueprints, not for the museum." He turned the screen. "Sir, these are your private cellars. All of them. The one at the marina, the one downtown. The Argent 7. This is a map of your entire rare wine distribution network. My own problems, the $500. The tuition felt so laughably small. This was corporate espionage, on a level I couldn't even comprehend." "Who hired you?" Gennaro repeated. His voice was soft now, almost kind, which was infinitely more terrifying. I don't know his name," Lisa sobbed. She pointed a shaking finger at me. He said she had to die. He said it wasn't about you, Mr. Caruso. It was her. The poison, it was for her. She had to be the one to serve it. But if she tasted it first, he said that was fine, too." My blood turned to ice. This made no sense. Why me?" "Who?" Gennaro pressed. I can't." Lisa's eyes suddenly rolled back into her head. A sickening gurgle came from her throat, and she began to convulse, her body jerking violently on the floor. "The tooth!" Ivo shouted, dropping the tablet and forcing his fingers into her mouth. But it was too late. Her jaw had clamped shut. She went limp, a faint wisp of bitter almond-scented foam on her lips. "She's out," Ivo said, checking her pulse. "Shallow, but she's useless to us." I slid down the wall, my knees giving out. I just watched a woman take herself out rather than answer him. I was shaking, a deep, uncontrollable tremor that started in my chest. "Why me?" I whispered, looking up at Gennaro. "She said it was for me. I'm a student. I'm a nobody. Why does the Orpheus circle? Why do they even know my name?" Gennaro wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the unconscious Lisa, his face a mask of pure, cold calculation. He motioned to Ivo, who was examining the original poisoned cork from the evidence bag. "The needle mark," Gennaro said quietly, pointing to the tiny puncture hole. "It's not just a hole. Look, under the UV light." Ivo shined a small light on it, a faint, three-pointed sigil, almost invisible, glowed around the puncture. "The Calder Foundry," Ivo said, his voice grim. "The needle shop? They craft custom assassination tools. For hire." "Orpheus doesn't use Calder," Gennaro mused, thinking aloud. "Calder works for the highest bidder. Someone hired Calder to make the tool, and hired Orpheus to stage the hit, using a Saffron and Flint employee as the mule. This is complicated and expensive. The adrenaline that had kept me standing finally drained away. The full weight of the night crashed down on me. The phut of the silenced weapons, the smell of plaster dust, Lisa's vacant, foaming mouth. My whole body started to shake. Gennaro looked at me, his brow furrowed. He looked like he was about to tell me to pull myself together, but he hesitated. Then, in a single fluid motion, he shrugged out of his tuxedo jacket. It was heavy, made of thick, impossibly soft wool. He draped it over my shoulders. The jacket swallowed me. It was absurdly large, but it was incredibly warm, and it smelled of him, that clean bergamot, and something deeper, richer, like sandalwood and cedar. The scent was grounding. The alarms were still blaring in the distance, a high-pitched, frantic wee-wee. But here, in this cocoon of his warmth, my shaking began to slow. He looked away, almost as if he was embarrassed by the gesture. "Don't get it dirty." Ivo's earpiece crackled. He listened, his face hardening. "Sir, perimeter breach, West Terrace. They're not Kestrel. These are professionals. Heavy. I'm seeing Orpheus sigils. They're not trying to get in. They're setting up. Exterior positions. Snipers. The lockdown, it wasn't to keep us in, it was to keep help out." Gennaro actually smiled. It was the first one I'd seen. It was cold, thin, and utterly predatory. "So, they locked the doors for me, to trap the mouse with the snakes, but they've forgotten whose house this is." He tapped his own earpiece. "They think this is a cage. It's my cage." "Get her back to the main hall," he ordered, "and bring that." He nodded at Lisa's unconscious body. We returned to a new kind of chaos. The guests were terrified. Annika Rowe looked like she was about to have an aneurysm. Gennaro didn't hesitate. He walked straight to the podium and took the microphone. "An update, His voice boomed, silencing the room. "We have apprehended the person who poisoned the wine, a Saffron and Flint employee named Lisa Quen." He motioned, and 2 of his men dragged her body into view. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "We have also confirmed, with evidence," he held up my wine-stained glove for all to see, "that Miss Mara Linwood is, in fact, innocent. She was the second target of this attack, the intended mule for a trap." The crowd murmured, their eyes, hundreds of them, turning to me. I felt naked, exposed. "The Orpheus Circle," he continued, his voice resonating with authority, "attempted to silence Miss Linwood tonight. The building is now surrounded by their operatives. They are here." His voice dropped. "For her. Until this threat is neutralized, my security team is handling this situation. We," he gestured to his men, "are now your only line of defense. The BCI is, of course, welcome to assist." He'd done it in 30 seconds, flipped the entire script. He wasn't the jailer, he was the protector. Annika Rowe was no longer the authority. She was a guest, and I was the precious cargo. The bait he was using to keep the feds, the crowd, and the killers all focused. He stepped down from the podium and walked to me. I was shaking again, but this time with a cold, clear anger. "You're using me." "I'm keeping you alive," he countered, his voice low. Why me?" The question burst out of me. "I don't understand." He studied my face, his dark eyes searching for something. "You tell me. What did you do? Who did you see?" "Nothing. I go to school, I work, I have to pay for my mom's medicine." The words tumbled out, desperate and pathetic. "At Mercy Bluff, I owe $500 to a loan shark. That is my big, dark secret, Mr. Caruso. I'm poor. I'm not a spy. I'm nobody." His expression didn't change, but I saw him file the information away. Mercy Bluff, the debt. "We pay what we owe," and he said simply. It wasn't a promise. It was just a statement of fact. Ivo appeared at his side. "Sir, the roof. Technical hatch. It's on a time lock. Integrated with the alarm. We can't override it from here, but we can set the release. It'll pop in 90 minutes. It'll stay open for 5. 90 minutes. Gennaro mused. An hour and a half, long enough for Orpheus to get impatient, long enough for them to show their real hand. He turned to me. The warmth of his jacket was still on my shoulders, but his eyes were as cold as the Greyhaven rain. "You have a choice, Mara," he said. "Supervisor Rowe and the BCI will offer you witness protection. They'll put you in a safe house. You'll be a number in their system, and you'll spend the rest of your short life looking over your shoulder until Orpheus finds a way to bribe the right guard." He paused. "Or you stay with me. Temporary protection. My terms." "And what are your terms?" I whispered, my throat dry. "You answer every question I have. You don't move without my permission. You do exactly what I say. And in return, I find out who wants you dead, and I will make them stop. Permanently." I looked over at Annika Rowe. She was arguing with one of her agents, her face a mask of bureaucratic frustration, gesturing at the locked doors. Then I looked at Gennaro Caruso, a man who had just faced down assassins, locked down a skyscraper, and calmed a room of billionaires, all without creasing his suit. This wasn't a choice between good and bad. It was a choice between survival and something else. I stay with you," I said. "Good," he nodded, as if the outcome was never in doubt. "Now, let's find out who else is in this room." My choice hung in the air, a contract sealed in the cold, sterile corridor. "I stay with you." Gennaro had nodded, a simple, sharp gesture of acceptance, but staying with him didn't mean standing still. It meant being plunged deeper into the heart of his world. We were back in the art storage room, the fluorescent lights humming, casting us all in a pale, sickly glow. Annika Rowe and her BCI agents were kept at bay by two of Gennaro's men. A tense, silent standoff near the stairs. Ivo had Lisa's unconscious body propped in a corner, already bound, and was now working at a complex, encrypted communications console he'd produced from another one of his magical aluminum cases. "They're hailing us," Ivo said, his voice clipped. "Encrypted, Orpheus signature." Gennaro stood over the console. Now he didn't look at me, but I knew his order to stay close was absolute. I was a shadow he was keeping tethered to his heel, still wrapped in his ridiculously warm, bergamot-scented jacket. On screen, Gennaro said, "Audio only." A burst of static, then a voice. It was smooth, educated, with a slight, unplaceable accent. It was the calmest voice I'd ever heard. It sounded like old money and new poison. "Mr. Caruso, a pleasure. I am Dorian Keel. I believe you have two items that belong to us." "I have a building full of terrified guests. Mr. Keel," Gennaro replied, his own voice just as level, a steel blade hidden in velvet. "And an employee of yours who self-terminated. Your housekeeping is sloppy." A dry chuckle came through the speaker. "We'll send a cleaning crew. Let's not waste time. We want the girl, and we want the schematics she was carrying." My heart hammered. The girl. He meant me. "She's not merchandise," I whispered, my voice shaking. Gennaro held up a hand, silencing me, but his eyes didn't move from the console. "You want to trade. You've surrounded my building, threatened my guests, and attempted to assassinate an innocent woman on my property. Your opening offer is weak." "Our opening offer," Keel's voice hardened, "is that we don't activate the Kestrel Collective operatives I still have inside your little fortress. You have snipers outside. Mr. Caruso, I have scalpels inside. The girl in the drive, you have—" a pause. 85 minutes until your roof access opens. They knew about the roof hatch. "Let's make a deal," Gennaro said smoothly. "You want the drive, fine. You want the girl, no. I'll give you something better. I'll give you the man who hired you. I'm sure Calder Foundry would love to know you're giving up their operatives." "You're stalling," Keel said. "You have nothing." "I have a name," Gennaro lied, his voice pure confidence. "Give me 10 minutes. As a sign of good faith, I'll send out the drive. A runner, with one of the statues from the main hall, a little gift. You can verify it's the real data." Ivo was already working, his fingers flying. He grabbed the USB drive and slotted it into a cloning device. He then looked at a small, hollow bronze statue of a bird on a nearby shelf, a plan, a fake. "A generous offer," Keel said, his voice laced with suspicion. "Very well. 10 minutes. But Mr. Caruso, just so we're clear about who you're protecting." The voice paused, and I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room. "Tell the little sparrow we just want the trinket she found at Freight 9, 12 years ago. Tell her we're tired of waiting." The world tilted. The fluorescent lights buzzed, louder and louder, until they were screaming in my ears. Freight 9. The words hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't Mara. I was 6 years old. I was hiding behind a stack of rotting wooden pallets at the Freight 9 cargo depot. It was raining. Just like tonight, I was small. I was a sparrow, hiding from the storm. I saw them, 3 men, Orpheus Circle, though I didn't know the name then. They were arguing with the night guard, a kind old man named Mr. Henderson who always gave me leftover pieces of his sandwich. And then they weren't arguing. The smell, pine resin, sharp and sticky. One of the men wore a cracked, homemade-looking mask, and the smell was coming from him. I watched him. I watched him hurt Mr. Henderson when they left, when it was finally quiet. I'd crept out. The only thing left behind, snagged on a nail, was a small, jagged piece of that mask, black plastic, still smelling of pine. I'd kept it. I'd hidden it. It was in a little tin box under a loose floorboard in my mom's apartment. My only secret, my only proof. "Mara," Gennaro's voice. He wasn't looking at the console. He was looking at my face. He saw it. He saw that Dorian Keel had just struck oil. She knows. Keel's voice was laced with triumph. "She knows exactly what I'm talking about, and she knows who she gave it to. She gave it to one of yours, Caruso, the girl who liked to pick up strays, the one who got lost." A beat of silence. "She gave it to sell." Gennaro Caruso moved. It was the first uncontrolled motion I had ever seen from him. He didn't shout. He didn't break anything. He just put his hand on the console, his knuckles turning white, his entire body rigid. A wave of pure, cold fury rolled off him. It was so potent it made me take a step back. His voice, when he spoke, was a whisper of compressed diamond. "You will not say her name." "Then give me the girl," Keel snapped, his own composure breaking. "She's the last link. Give her to me, and Cell's name stays buried." The line went dead. I stared at him, my mind racing, suspicion and a new, terrible fear mixing in my gut. "You knew." I accused him, my voice trembling. You knew they were after me. You knew about Sparrow. This whole thing you're using me. To get to him. To find out what happened to her. To Cell." His head snapped toward me. The fury was still there, banked but burning hot in his dark eyes. "Do not ever accuse me of using her name. This stopped being business the moment he spoke it." He turned to Evo. "Kill the public cameras. All of them. Reroute main power to the private network. I want every system in this building under our control. As of this second, the BCI is blind. Greyhaven is blind. They only see what I let them see." Evo nodded, his fingers flying. "Done." Gennaro turned back to me, the anger replaced by that cold, analytical focus. He spoke to Evo. "Pull up the file. Project Sparrow. Internal. Encrypted." Evo's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. "Sir." "Do it." The tablet screen lit up. Evo handed it to me. It was an old file, clearly from an internal Caruso server. Most of it was redacted, black bars covering names and dates, but the title was clear, Project Sparrow, and below it, a clipped-together series of reports, unsubstantiated witness sighting, Freight 9 depot, missing child, possible connection, and then a series of handwritten notes, digitized. The handwriting was feminine, looping and fast. "She saw him. I know she did. She's the key. I have to find her before they do." The initials at the bottom of the note were S.C., Cell Caruso. My sister," Gennaro said, the word sounding rough, unused. She was adopted. She had a soft spot for strays, like she used to be. She worked the shelters, the clinics. She must have heard your story. She was looking for you, not for Orpheus, for you, to protect you. I looked at the screen, at this ghost's handwriting, and felt a sudden, sharp connection. She'd been my protector all these years, and I'd never even known her name. So this, I looked up at him, this isn't just about the wine, or the data, or me. This is about her. This is about finishing what she started, he said. His voice flat. He met my gaze, and the coldness was gone, replaced by something I couldn't name. A raw, unshielded intensity. I give you my word, Mara, I am not trading you. I am not using you as bait. I protect what is mine. And as of tonight, that includes you. I will protect you. I will not trade you for anything. I held his gaze. Then stop calling me the girl. Stop talking about me like merchandise. My name is Mara. A flicker of, was it a smile? It was gone too fast. Mara, he agreed, a promise. The truce was fragile, but it was there. It was broken, predictably, by Annika Rowe. She'd clearly had enough. She stormed over, her face a mask of official fury, her agents trailing her. That's it, Caruso. I'm done. Your lockdown is now a hostage situation, Miss Linwood. She turned to me, her voice attempting to be kind, but coming out like rusted metal. This is your last chance. You are a material witness. I can offer you full federal protective custody. Right now, we will breach those doors, and you will walk out with us. And, Gennaro asked, his arms crossed. And, Annika said, her eyes fixed on me, you will testify. Full immunity. You tell us everything you've seen tonight about the Orpheus Circle and about the Caruso Syndicate's operations. You give us both, and you're free. The air went thin. She was offering me a way out, a clean slate. All I had to do was betray him. Betray the man who had just put his jacket over my shoulders and promised me his protection. Betray the memory of the sister I never knew. I looked at Annika's hard, procedural eyes. I saw a life of safe houses, of testifying, of being a number in a file. Then I looked at Gennaro. I saw danger. I saw a world of shadows and violence, but I also saw the man who had recognized his sister's work and had just sworn, with a fire in his eyes, that I believed that he would not trade me. I trusted my gut. It's what kept me alive at Freight 9. No, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm staying here, with him. Annika's face went rigid. You're making a fatal mistake, kid. You're choosing the wrong side. She's choosing the one that's still standing, Gennaro said. Ivo, the shout came from across the hall. We all turned. Ivo had a man pinned against the wall, a man in a simple black suit who had been standing near the edge of the guest perimeter, posing as a guest's bodyguard. He was fighting back, but Ivo was a machine. His ID is a fake, Ivo yelled, wrenching the man's arm behind his back. It's a Calder Foundry tag. He's not a bodyguard. He's one of their pins, an assassin. Gennaro was moving before Ivo even finished his sentence. He grabbed the man by the hair, yanking his head back. Who are you? The man just smiled, a bloody, broken grin. You're all dead anyway. Ivo finished patting him down. He's clean, sir. No weapon, no weight. His scanner, which he'd been sweeping over the room, started to beep, a high-pitched, frantic sound. What is it? Gennaro demanded. Ivo's face was pale. He pointed up at the massive, modern chandelier in the main hall, just 30 yards away. He wasn't trying to get to us, Ivo said, his voice tight with a new, terrible urgency. He was planting... Sir, he's activated a microwave emitter. It's on a timer. The whole hall he's going to cook us. Cook us. The words came from Ivo, but they registered in my brain with the terrifying, clinical precision of a culinary term. Not bomb us. Cook us. The Calder pin. The assassin who had been posing as a bodyguard was still smiling, his bloody grin a testament to the horror he'd just unleashed. We weren't in the line of fire. We were in the oven. Yara, Gennaro's voice was a whip crack, cutting through the rising panic. I hadn't even seen her. A woman in a saffron and flint uniform, just like mine, sprinted from behind a cluster of terrified guests. But where I carried a tray, she carried a tablet, and a tool belt was slung low on her hips, hidden by her apron. She was one of his... She and Ivo met at the main security console. "He's right," Yara Tamsin said, her voice fast and professional, her fingers a blur on the screen. "It's an improvised microwave emitter, high frequency, tucked into the chandelier's main transformer. It's going to fry every living thing in this hall in shit. 2 minutes." "Then cut the power to the chandelier," Annika Rowe shouted, her voice shrill. "Can't," Yara shot back. "It's got an independent battery, and it's not on a simple timer. It's slave to his biometrics." She pointed at the smiling assassin, now held in Ivo's iron grip. "It's wired to his heart, a live man switch, but it's also a dead man switch. We stop his heart, it triggers. We let his heart beat, it's set to trigger on the 500th beat." "How many beats left?" Gennaro asked, his voice deathly calm. "About 150, Yara said. "I can't get a clean reading. The signal's shielded. I need to sever the primary wire, but I have to do it between the beats. In the refractory period, if I cut it during a pulse, the feedback loop will trigger it instantly." "I can't see the rhythm," Ivo growled. "The light, it's steady." "No," I whispered. I could feel it, a strange, sharp taste at the back of my throat, like biting aluminum foil. It's the smell." Gennaro's head snapped toward me. "What?" "Ozone," I said, my culinary senses, my synesthesia, kicking into overdrive, the stress, the fear it was making everything sharp. The transformer, every time it pulses, every time his heart beats, it draws power. It's releasing a tiny, tiny puff of ozone. I can smell it. It's fast. Yara's eyes, wide with panic, suddenly focused on me. "The smell, you can smell the rhythm?" "I can taste it," I said. "It's surge, pause. The pause is short, barely a second." "That's our window," Yara said. She was already moving, pulling a specialized tool from her belt. "I can't get to the chandelier, but the junction box is behind that panel." She pointed to the wall. "I need the gap. I need it precisely." She ripped the panel off the wall, revealing a nightmarish web of wires. "Now," Gennaro said, his eyes on me. "Talk to her. Guide her hand." I closed my eyes. I shut out the screaming. I shut out Annika Rowe, the pin, the guns. I focused on that single, sharp, metallic taste, the rhythm of a man's life and our death. Pulse, gap pulse, gap pulse. "It's speeding up," I said, my own heart hammering. "He's scared. His pulse is climbing. The gaps are getting shorter. You have to move fast." "Tell me when," Yara whispered, her wire cutters hovering. I breathed in, tasted the static, waited, pulse. Now. Snip. The hum stopped. The faint, sharp smell of ozone vanished. The room was silent. We all looked at the chandelier. It was still lit. We all looked at the Calder pin. His bloody smile was gone, replaced by a look of profound, complete disbelief. Yara sagged against the wall, her face slick with sweat. I didn't realize I was shaking until I tried to take a step and my knees buckled. I braced myself against a marble pillar, my entire body vibrating like a tuning fork. Gennaro walked over to me. He didn't say thank you or good job. He just stood in front of me for a second, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he reached out and took my hand. Not my hand, my wrist. His fingers were warm. He wrapped them around my wrist, his thumb pressing lightly against the frantic, rabbit-fast pulse. He held it for a full 2 seconds, his gaze locked on mine, as if he was memorizing the rhythm of my life. His eyes, just for that single moment, weren't cold. They were soft, almost undone. He let go like he'd been burned, clearing his throat. "Back to the storage room," he commanded, his voice all business again. "All of you." We moved. Ivo dragged the now terrified pin. Annika and her BCI team followed, their faces pale and, for the first time, uncertain. They had just been saved, not by procedure, but by a caterer who could smell a heartbeat. Back in the cold, fluorescent-lit tomb, Yara was already working on the USB drive Lysa had been carrying. The rest of us, we breathed. "You have a gift," Gennaro said, his back to me. He was watching Yara work. It's just synesthesia. My senses get mixed up when I'm stressed." He turned, his face shadowed. "Sell my sister, she was like that. She saw connections, things that weren't there. She saw patterns in the chaos." He was quiet for a moment. The only sound was Yara's typing. She wasn't blood," he said, his voice low, rough. "I found her, in an alley by the docks, just a kid, 10, maybe fierce. She was protecting another, younger kid from some street junkies. I took her in." He paused, his gaze distant. "She never stopped. She kept trying to protect the weak. That's how Orpheus trapped her. She was trying to pull Sparrow you out of the fire she'd found you in. She got too close." The weight of it hit me. Cel Caruso. She'd been my phantom protector, and she had walked into a trap that was meant for me. "Sir, I'm in." Yara's voice cut through the heavy silence. "The encryption is broken." We all gathered around her tablet. It's not just your sellers. Mr. Caruso. It's a ledger, a full-scale financial network. Orpheus, they're using your rare wine shipments. They're hiding microcircuitry encrypted financial data in the Argent No. 7 bottles, the ones you ship internationally. "They're using my own network to smuggle their assets," Gennaro said, his voice a low growl of compressed fury. His empire had been compromised, used against him. Yara kept scrolling. There are shipping manifests. A lot of this, it's moving through the Meridian cold storage facility. My blood went cold. "Meridian," I said. I interned there last summer for my culinary program in the wine division." Gennaro's eyes snapped to me. "What did you see?" "Nothing. Just crates. So many crates. We had to check the seals, the corks, for quality control. Wait." A memory, faint and dusty, surfaced, a hot, boring afternoon in a cold, damp room. There was a mark on some of the corks, under the foil, a tiny symbol, burned into the wood. It looked like an inverted V, just a V shape, upside down. I asked my supervisor. He said it was just a batch marker from a new supplier. Gennaro and Ivo locked eyes. It was a look of pure, cold understanding. "It's not a V," Ivo said, his voice grim. "It's his sign." Gennaro said the name like it was a curse. Varen Holt. "Who is Varen Holt?" I asked. "A broker," Gennaro said, his voice tight with anger. "A ghost. He plays both sides. Ours, Orpheus. Sells to the highest bidder. If Holt is involved, this isn't just an attack. It's a takeover. He's not just trying to kill you, Mara, he's trying to steal Orpheus's entire financial network and my distribution map, all in one night, and he's using you as the spark to light the whole fire." He paced for a second, then stopped. A predatory gleam entered his eyes. "A reverse heist," he mused. "Holt wants this data. Keel wants this data. They're both out there. They both think we have the only copy." He looked at Yara. "How fast can you create a dummy File 1 that looks real, but as a tracker?" "5 minutes, as she said." "Good." He walked to the encrypted console Ivo had set up. "We're going to hold an auction, right here, right now." He reestablished the secure channel. "Mr. Keel, a change of plans." Dorian Keel's voice was wary. "Caruso, your time is running out." "My time is just beginning. It seems what you have and what I have is now wanted by a third party, Varen Holt." The silence on the other end was absolute. "I have the only complete copy of that drive," Gennaro lied, his voice resonating with pure, arrogant confidence. "And I'm selling it. One-time offer. Highest bidder, you or Holt. You both know how to reach him. You have 60 minutes. Send your bid to this secure channel. The winner gets the drive. The loser gets to deal with me." He cut the feed, plunging the room into silence. He had just started a war between his enemies, from inside his own cage. The room became a hive of activity. Ivo was securing the Calder pin. Yara was frantically typing, building the fake data file. Anika Rowe was in the corner. shouting into a dead satellite phone, her face a mask of purple-white rage. Gennaro grabbed my arm. "Come with me." He pulled me, not back to the main hall, but into an adjacent gallery. The door was heavy, and he shut it behind us. The exhibit was called Breath. It was pitch black, filled with massive sculptures I couldn't see. The only sound was the distant, muffled shouting and the relentless drum of the rain on the roof. Far above, it was silent. He didn't let go of my arm. He just stood there with me in the dark. I could feel the warmth of his body radiating next to me. You're using me again," I whispered, my voice sounding small in the vast, dark room. "As bait. For this auction. You're using me to make them believe it's real." He turned. I couldn't see his face, only his silhouette against the faint emergency light from the corridor. His hand moved from my arm, sliding to my back, resting on the wool of his own jacket, which I was still wearing. The warmth of his hand seeped through the thick fabric. "I am," he said, his voice a low rumble. "We are bait, together." If I was just bait, I whispered, the question tearing out of me, the one that had been burning behind my ribs. Why lock the doors? Why trap yourself in here? You could have let them take me. You could have escaped. He was silent for a long, long moment. He stepped closer. I could feel his breath stir the hair at my temple. "If you were just bait, Mara," he said, his voice impossibly soft, "I wouldn't have locked the doors to die with you." My heart didn't just stop. It evaporated. It dissolved into 1,000 pieces and then reformed, beating with a new, strange, terrifying rhythm. The moment, suspended in the dark, was shattered by Ivo's voice from the doorway. "Sir, they're both in Keel and Holt. They're trying to outbid each other. It's a full-on bidding war." Gennaro pulled back, just an inch. "Good. Annika," he called out into the hall. Supervisor Rowe appeared, her face thunderous. "You," Gennaro said, "are a liability, but your badge is useful. Ivo. You are now Supervisor Rowe's personal bodyguard. You keep her, and her agents, alive. Understand, keep the BCI balanced. I don't need them getting spooked and starting their own firefight." Ivo nodded, his face impassive. "And you, sir?" "I'm keeping the asset." He looked at me, his eyes now accustomed to the gloom. "Mara stays with me. We're going to see who wins this auction." We walked back toward the console, the air electric. We had a plan, we had a trap, we had a timer. And then the lights went out. Not just the lights, everything. The consoles, the tablets, Ivo's scanner, the emergency lights in the corridor. The entire building was plunged into absolute, suffocating, total darkness. "Yara," Gennaro snapped. "It's not me, sir." Yara's voice was tight with a new, high-pitched panic. "The power isn't cut, the system is hijacked. Something just locked us out. All of us. Orpheus, BCI, us. It's a new player." A single screen flickered to life, not the main console. A small, secondary monitor in the corner, one that hadn't even been on. Green text appeared, slow, cursive, mocking. "Access denied." A new line of text scrolled beneath it. "New game in progress. Initiating phantom profile." A third party, a ghost in the machine, and we were trapped in the dark with it. The world dissolved. The consoles, the emergency lights, the faint glow from the corridor, everything vanished, plunging us into a profound, suffocating blackness. The high-tech prison of glass and steel had just become a high-tech tomb. The only sounds in the Breath exhibit were the muffled, relentless drumming of the Greyhaven rain on the roof far above, and another sound, impossibly close and loud, the sharp, shallow rasp of my own breathing. Then a third sound, the slow, controlled inhale and exhale of the man standing right next to me. Gennaro Caruso was not afraid of the dark. I felt, rather than saw, him move. The hand that had been resting on my back, on the wool of his own jacket, slid up to my shoulder. His touch was firm, grounding in the absolute dark. His warmth was a lighthouse. They can't see us either, he said. His voice was a low rumble, seeming to come from the darkness itself, not from a man. This phantom, it just leveled the playing field. His hand moved from my shoulder. His fingers traced the collar of the jacket, brushing the skin just above my collarbone. The touch was light, a ghost of a caress, but it sent a jolt straight through me. It wasn't possessive, it wasn't accidental, it was a question, asked in the only language we had left. I didn't pull away. I didn't even breathe. He let his hand rest there, his thumb a circle of warmth against my skin. You know, he murmured, his voice softer, when I first saw you at the table, before I saw the wine, I saw your lips. I swallowed, my throat dry. My lips. They were pale, he said, a faint bluish tint, the kind I've seen before. I thought you'd tasted it. The confession hung in the air, a stunning, intimate admission. I was terrified, I whispered back, my own truth rising to meet his. I wasn't poisoned. I was just so scared. Scared of the debt, scared of my boss, and then scared of you. When you looked at me, I thought my life was over. I felt his other hand come up. He found my face in the dark, his fingers gentle, tracing the line of my jaw. He wasn't mapping me. He was anchoring me. Your life, he said, is not over. He leaned in. I felt the warmth of his breath before his skin touched mine. His forehead came to rest against my own, solid, warm, real. He was a wall against the chaos, a fixed point in a world that had just been erased. Just breathe, he whispered, his voice vibrating from his skull into mine. Right here, with me. We are not in that hall. We are not on that screen. We are here, just us. I inhaled, a shaky, ragged breath that tasted of dust, and his clean, bergamot scent, he matched it, a slow, deliberate inhale. I exhaled. He exhaled. We found a rhythm, together in the dark, a shared pulse, an anchor. The world shrank. It was no longer a lockdown skyscraper full of snipers, assassins, and a rogue AI. It was just this shared space, this shared breath. He shifted, just a fraction of an inch. His lips brushed mine. It was impossibly soft. It was a question, not a demand. It was the next logical step from sharing a breath. I didn't move. I didn't pull back. I simply stopped breathing. I accepted the touch. He took that as the answer it was. His hands, which had been so gentle, moved with a new, firm purpose. They slid from my face, down my arms, to my back. He didn't pull me. He just held me. His palms splayed wide, one in the middle of my back, one just at the small of it, holding me steady. His touch was respectful, solid, a promise of safety. The kiss deepened, but it never lost its tenderness. It was slow, it was soft. It was the first moment of peace I'd had in years. It was not the kiss of a Mafia boss taking what he wanted. It was the kiss of a man who had just admitted he was afraid. It was a kiss that said, "You are real. I am real. This is all that matters." My own hands, which had been clenched into fists at my sides, slowly uncurled. I rested them on his chest, feeling the solid muscle, the thrum of his steady heart beneath my palms. The warmth from his hands on my back seeped through the heavy wool of the jacket, through my thin uniform, and into my very bones. The fear, the icy, paralyzing fear that had lived in my stomach all night, began to dissolve. It didn't just fade. It was burned away by this quiet, insistent warmth. He pulled back, just an inch. His forehead came to rest against mine again. I could feel his breath, warm and quickened, on my cheeks. He was seeking confirmation, checking to see if he had crossed a line. I opened my eyes. Though it made no difference in the pitch-black room, I nodded. A small, almost convulsive motion. "I'm here," I whispered. It was all I needed to say. He didn't kiss me again. He just held me. He shifted his stance, pulling me fully against his chest, his arms wrapped around me, one hand still on my back, the other moving up to cradle the back of my head. his fingers threading into my hair. I buried my face in the crook of his neck, inhaling the scent of him, the scent of the jacket, the scent of safety. We just stood there, two people in the dark, while the rain hammered a frantic rhythm on the roof. It was the only sound in the world. He pressed a small, dry kiss to my temple, another just at the hairline by my cheek. It was an act of profound, quiet comfort. He spoke, his voice a low vow, his lips moving against my hair. "No one touches you while I'm breathing. Mara, that is my promise." A harsh crackle of static shattered the perfect silence. It wasn't from the dead consoles. It was low-tech, physical. It came from his belt. Gennaro tensed. His hand tightened in my hair. "Sir," Ivo's voice, tinny and strained, cut through the dark. "Sir, are you there? The analog channel is working. Are you there?" Gennaro pulled back, his hands moving to my shoulders. The cold of the room rushed in to fill the space where he had been. "I'm here. Ivo." He spoke, his voice now crisp. "All business. What's the status?" "The trap worked," Ivo said, his voice tight with relief and new urgency. "Right before the Phantom AI cut the power, the auction completed. We got him. Varenholt, nah, he took the dummy file. The tracker is active. He's on the roof, the penthouse level, moving toward the north terrace. He must be heading for the roof hatch, trying to beat the timer." The real world, in all its cold, sharp-edged danger, came crashing back in. The ghost in the machine was a problem, but the man on the roof was a target. Gennaro let go of me, turning toward the faint outline of the door. I felt the loss of his warmth instantly, but the fear didn't return. This time, as he moved, I was the one who acted. I reached out in the dark, my fingers finding his hand, lacing through his. My grip was firm. He stopped. His fingers tightened, twining with mine. I didn't let go. I tugged him forward out of the dark, silent room and into the dim, red-lit emergency corridor. The warmth he had given me hadn't vanished. It had transformed. It wasn't a shield anymore. It was a sword, and we were going to use it together. The bond formed in the dark exhibit was a physical thing. My hand in Gennaro's was no longer the tentative, questioning touch of a moment ago. It was a lifeline, a circuit. We were moving, not through the opulent halls, but through the emergency-lit service stairs, the only path the phantom profile AI couldn't control. The elevators were dead tombs. The penthouse was 20 flights up. We took them 2 at a time. A grim, silent ascent, our linked hands a tactical anchor, pulling each other through the red-drenched darkness. "Ivo, status," Gennaro spoke into his analog radio, his voice barely winded. "He's barricaded the penthouse stairwell." Ivo's voice crackled back. "And sir, he's not alone. He ambushed us. He has Supervisor Rowe." Gennaro didn't break stride. He just gripped my hand tighter. "He's trapped. We take him from the main floor." We burst through the penthouse door. It wasn't a utility space. It was a glass-walled palace in the clouds. The rain and wind of the Greyhaven storm hammering against the windows. The city lights a distant, blurry smear. And he was there, Varenholt. He was thin, weasel-like, his expensive suit soaked with rain. He had one arm locked around Annika Rowe's throat, a pistol pressed to her temple. Her face was a mask of white, abject terror, her BCI-issued sidearm lying uselessly on the thick carpet. Ivo was nowhere to be seen, and a sick dread filled me. "Caruso!" Varen yelled, his voice cracking with a high-pitched, nervous energy. He dragged Annika backward toward the terrace. "You magnificent, arrogant bastard, you set it all up, all of it." "Let her go, Varen," Gennaro said, his voice a low, cold vibration. We fanned out, me to the left, him to the right, forcing Varen's attention to split. "You staged the lockdown," Varen shrieked, his eyes wild. "The Kestrel Collective, the AI that phantom is yours. Isn't it a power play? You trap Orpheus, you trap the BCI, you expose me, and you take the whole network in one night. You take everything." Annika gasped. "He's right, Caruso." Your man, Ivo. He led me right into this. He led you, Gennaro said, his voice cutting through the man's panic. Because I told him to, but not for the reason you think. He didn't look at Varen, he looked at Annika. You're a bureaucrat, Annika. You were in the way. I needed you secured. He pulled his own radio from his jacket. And as for this being my play, you've overestimated me, Varen, but you've severely underestimated your other clients. He clicked the radio. It wasn't a private channel. The PA system, dead just moments ago, crackled to life with a piercing feedback squeal. His voice boomed, not just in the penthouse, but, I realized, everywhere. This is Gennaro Caruso. For my guests and for Supervisor Rowe's agents, the man holding her hostage is Varen Holt, a broker who just tried to sell this. He held up the dummy USB drive to the highest bidder. The PA system crackled again. We heard Varen's own voice, recorded from the auction. $3 million for the drive, then Dorian Keel's $4 million. He's been playing both sides for a year, Gennaro's voice continued, a calm, lethal narration. Selling Caruso assets to Orpheus, selling Orpheus assets to us, and tonight he took a private contract. A new file played, a cold digital voice. Contract accepted, Calder Foundry, Target Sparrow, termination, Freight 9 protocol. He's lying, Varen screamed, yanking Annika tighter. It's all fake. You did this. He pointed the gun at me, his hand shaking. You little sparrow. You should have died 12 years ago. You and that old fool at the depot. You should have stayed dead. The name, his voice, the sound of the rain on the glass. And a smell. The wind roared as the storm hit the penthouse terrace, slamming against the pine trees planted in huge stone pots. The scent of wet pine, sharp and resinous, filled the air. It wasn't a memory. It was a sensory snapshot, unchanged by 12 years. The cracked, homemade-looking mask, the smell of pine resin, the man who had stood over Mr. Henderson, the man whose voice was now shrieking at me. It was you, I whispered, the words tasting like ash. The mask, it smelled of pine resin. You were there. You were the one. Varen's face twisted, his mask of panic replaced by a snarl of pure venom. He knew. He was unmasked, truly and completely. I should have finished the job myself. He was trapped. He knew it. Gennaro stood by the main door. The terrace was a 20-story drop. Varen's eyes darted to the stairwell, his only way down. Clang! The stairwell door flew open. Ivo stood there. He was bleeding from a gash on his forehead, explaining how Annika had been taken, but he was a wall, a terminal, immovable object. Varen was caught, between Gennaro, Ivo, and me. He shoved the gun harder against Annika's head. She dies, I swear. Caruso. I'll do it, back off, both of you. Gennaro didn't back off. He took a step forward. You have two choices. Varen, my justice, or the fall. Either way, it ends here. I have a third, Varen screamed, turning, trying to drag Annika with him. No, you don't, I said. My body moved before my brain. On the bar, a relic of the gala, was an empty, heavy glass champagne bottle. I grabbed it. I didn't think about my aim. I just threw it. Not at him. At the metal air conditioning grate on the wall, 10 feet to his left. It struck the vent with a deafening clang. It was the oldest trick in the book, and it worked. Varen turned, his head, his gun. Everything pointed at the sound for a split second. A blur. Gennaro didn't hesitate. He crossed the 10 feet of carpet in an instant. It wasn't a shootout, it was a takedown. He didn't go for Varen, he went for Annika. He slammed into them, his arm hooking around Annika's waist, his momentum spinning them both around. He tore her from Varen's grasp and threw her, bodily, toward me. We tumbled to the carpet in a heap of limbs. Ivo was on Varen before the man could even re-aim. It was brutal and fast. A crack as Ivo met Varen's gun hand, the pistol skittered away. Ivo spun Varen around, slamming him face first into the wet bar. He didn't use cuffs. He ripped a heavy, tasseled cord from a curtain and bound Varen's hands in 3 seconds. The penthouse was suddenly silent, save for the three of us gasping for air and the relentless roar of the storm. Then a new sound, a low, powerful, hydraulic hiss. We all froze. The massive steel lockdown shutters, the ones sealing the terrace, groaned, and then, smooth as silk, they began to retract, sliding up into the ceiling. The glass terrace doors slid open, and the full force of the wind and rain blasted into the room, sending papers flying. We all looked at the console on the wall. The phantom profile screen was glowing. "The locks are open. The game is now interesting." It let us out," Annika stammered, pulling herself away from me. "Or," Gennaro said, his voice grim as he rose to his feet, "it's letting them in." He ignored the AI. He ignored the storm. He walked to Varen Holt, who was spitting blood onto the marble bar. Gennaro held up the dummy USB drive, the one Varen had in his pocket. "This," he said, pointing to the inverted V logo etched into the steel. "It matches the corks. A perfect match." Varen just laughed, a wet, choking sound. "Dorian Keel was a voice," Gennaro said, his tone conversational, as if they were discussing the weather. "A well-dressed front. He wasn't the buyer. He was your cover. Who hired you? Varen, who's the real boss." "Go to hell, Caruso." "You're already here." Gennaro's voice was ice. He nodded to Ivo. Ivo, his face a mask of stone, simply placed his hand on Varen's head and applied pressure, pushing his face toward the hard marble. No fanfare. Just cold. Absolute mechanics. Varen hissed in pain. "It doesn't matter, Keel is a suit. He's just a face. You think Orpheus is run by a man. You're a fool." "Talk," Gennaro commanded. "It's always her," Varen screamed, his voice muffled. "It's always been her. The matriarch Nyx. She runs all of it. She wanted the network. She wanted the sparrow. She wanted everything." Nyx. The name hung in the air, heavier than the storm. Varen started to laugh again, a hysterical bubbling sound. "And you walked right into it. You think you're so smart." He convulsed. His body went rigid, his jaw clamping shut. "The cyanide tooth," Gennaro roared. "No." He moved faster than I thought humanly possible. He lunged, jamming the fingers of his right hand into Varen's mouth, prying his jaw open. Varen bit down, hard. I heard Gennaro's sharp intake of breath as his own skin broke, but he didn't stop. He hooked his fingers, digging for the capsule. He ripped his hand back, spitting out a small, broken glass vial. Varen was choking, convulsing, but he was alive. Gennaro stood over him, breathing heavily, cradling his own bleeding hand. "You don't get to die. Not yet." Varen, gasping for air, his eyes wide with a strange, triumphant madness, just grinned up at him. "You're too late anyway," he choked out, a bloody froth on his lips. She already has her. Nyx, she has Cell." The air didn't just leave the room. It evaporated. It became a vacuum. Gennaro Caruso froze. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. His face, which had been a mask of focused fury, just crumbled. For one single horrifying instant, he was gone. He was not the boss. He was not the protector. He was just broken. I moved. I didn't think. I went to him. His hand was bleeding freely, dripping onto the priceless rug. I took it, my own hands trembling. I put my other hand over his, covering the bite, pressing down, a small, silent anchor. "I'm here." He looked down at our hands, his and mine covered in his blood. He took a single, ragged, shuddering breath, and the mask slid back into place. He looked at Ivo. "Get him downstairs. Get Yara. I want every drop of data from that man's skull. Now." Ivo nodded, hauling Varen to his feet. Annika, pale and shaking, was staring at the open terrace doors. "The lockdown, it's open." "It's partially open," Gennaro said, his voice flat. He didn't look at her. "The guests can leave. Get them out. Use the service tunnels, quietly. No media." "And him," she gestured at the retreating Varen, "and this Nyx." Gennaro finally turned to her. "You have a choice. Supervisor, you can arrest me. My men will fight you. Your agents will die. Orpheus will melt into the shadows. Nyx walks, or you give me 48 hours. 48 hours, she whispered, horrified. To do what? To clean my city. And he didn't raise his voice. You get Varen, you get his real data, all of it. The money laundering, the BCI moles he's been paying, the Orpheus network, everything. In exchange, I get Nyx. And I get my sister. Annika stared at him for a long moment. She knew it was the only play. She was a bureaucrat, but she wasn't stupid. 48 hours, she conceded, her voice shaking with rage and defeat. Then I'd come for all of you. I don't care what you find. Fair enough, Gennaro said. She left, stumbling slightly, barking orders into her own radio. The building was finally, slowly, bleeding out its panic. Ivo was gone. Annika was gone. It was just us, just Gennaro and me, standing in the wrecked penthouse, the storm raging around us. He was still staring out the open terrace doors, at the dark, violent city. Cell is alive. I was about to speak, to say his name. A whisper. It came from the console, the phantom profile screen, which had been glowing silently. Now flickered. It wasn't text. It was a voice. A synthesized, breathy, female voice. Mara? I froze, my blood turning to ice. Little Cloud, the voice whispered. Can you hear me? My heart stopped. Sparrow was my street name, the name I'd earned, the name Keel and Varen knew. But Little Cloud, that was the name my adoptive mother and only my mother called me, in a language no one else in Greyhaven knew. The ghost in the machine knew my real name. Little Cloud, can you hear me? The voice from the phantom profile console was a synthesized whisper, but it struck me with the force of a physical blow. Gennaro, whose entire world had just shattered with the news that his sister was alive, froze. He turned his head slowly, his dark eyes moments ago broken and lost, snapping into sharp, lethal focus. He looked from the screen to my face. He saw my shock. He knew this name meant something different. Sparrow was my past. Little Cloud was my soul. Who is that? He demanded, his voice a low growl. My mother, I stammered, in my heart hammering. My adoptive mom. She's the only person in the world who calls me that. The 48-hour clock Annika Rowe had given us was already ticking. The storm raged outside the penthouse, but inside, a new, colder storm had just made landfall. Cell was alive, and a ghost in the machine knew my mother's name for me. We didn't leave the Luma Tower through the lobby. We left through the sub-basement, a concrete maze that led to a storm drain and, finally, an anonymous black-armored SUV waiting in a rain-lashed alley. Yara Tamsin was at the wheel, her face pale but focused, a laptop already open on the passenger seat. Ivo, his forehead stitched and clean, got in the back with us. The air inside was thick with tension, with the scent of wet wool, Gennaro's blood and unspoken questions. As we pulled away, I saw Annika Rowe, standing under an awning, her face a mask of cold fury, watching us disappear into the Greyhaven night, a truce, a temporary, fragile alliance. Yara, the signal, Gennaro said, his voice rough. He was staring at his bandaged hand, the one I'd wrapped with a strip of linen from the bar. The AI's whisper, it wasn't just on the console, Yara said, her eyes on the road, her hands steady on the wheel. It was a broad-spectrum burst, but the origin, the core, it's tied to the Orpheus network, the same one Varen's data points to, Hollow Pier, the old industrial park. They're running a front of fake winery. The wine, I whispered. The Argent number 7, the microchips. That's where they process the bottles, Gennaro finished. That's where we go. Hollow Pier was a graveyard of industry. All rusting gantries and decaying warehouses. The rain turned the cracked asphalt into a black mirror. Yara killed the lights, and we coasted to a stop. The main signal is from that warehouse, Yara said, pointing. But I'm getting a secondary echo, a tiny one, over there. She pointed to a lone shipping container, painted with a huge, fading mural of sparrows bursting free from a cage. My heart stopped. Sparrow. Evo was out first, a shadow in the rain. He cleared the container in seconds. "Safe!" he called. We followed him, ducking inside. It was dry. It had been a safe house, a single cot, a table, a dead lantern. And on the far wall, scratched into the metal, was a line of text. "The river runs dark, but the mountain remembers the sun." Gennaro stared at it, frowning. "A code?" "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I walked toward it, tracing the letters. It's a song, a folk song. My mom used to sing it to me." A memory, warm and safe, of my mother humming, of a language I didn't understand but felt in my bones. It's a lullaby. It's about finding light in the dark. It's a story of hope. "What does it mean, Mara?" Gennaro asked, his voice soft. "It's a navigator's code." I pieced it together, the fragments of my mother's lessons suddenly clicking. The dark river is the Greyhaven Deep Channel. The mountain that remembers the sun is the old lighthouse on the East Point. It's a rendezvous point, or a dead drop. Evo was already checking a loose panel beneath the cot. "Something's here," he said. He pulled out a small, oilskin-wrapped package. Inside was a single, water-damaged photograph. My breath hitched. It was me, a tiny, 6-year-old girl, dirt-streaked and terrified, my eyes wide, and standing next to me, her arm slung protectively over my shoulder, was a teenager. She had dark, wild hair and the fiercest, kindest eyes I'd ever seen. Gennaro made a sound, a sharp, choked intake of breath. He took the photo from Evo, his fingers trembling. "Cell," he whispered. She was there," I said, the pieces of my past slamming into place. "At Freight 9, after Varen, after Mr. Henderson, she's the one who found me. She pulled me from behind the pallets. She told me to run and never look back. She saved my life." "She did more than that," Gennaro said, his voice thick. "She put you in my system. Project Sparrow. She hid you. She hid you from the BCI, from Orpheus, from me. She buried your files so deep no one could find it. She's been protecting you for 12 years. The world I thought I knew was a lie. I wasn't just a stray, I was her stray." "Yara," Gennaro said, his voice hardening as he turned back to the car. "The AI, I want to know what it is." We huddled in the back of the SUV, the rain hammering on the roof. Yara had Lisa's feather-shaped USB drive plugged into her console. "Sir, it's the same architecture. The AI that called you Little Cloud, its core protocol, is on this drive. It's not a phantom. That's a mask. The root program name is Echo. It's a companion AI, a learning algorithm. It's ancient by tech standards, but it's brilliant." "Echo," Gennaro said, testing the name. "Cell," I said, the final piece clicking. Cell wrote it. That's why it was on Lisa's drive, the drive Varen wanted. It wasn't just the financial data, it was the AI. And my mom must have known Cell. She must have helped her. She gave Cell my name, Little Cloud, as a key, a fail-safe. That's how Echo knew me. It was looking for me. Gennaro looked at me, a new, sharp respect in his eyes. "You're right. It's Cell's ghost in the machine." "We can use it," I said, my voice gaining strength. "Echo is inside their system. It's still inside their system. If it can override the Luma Tower, it can do anything. It can fake security feeds. It can fake voices. We can use Echo to issue a direct order, an order to move Cell. Move her from Nyx's control to ours," Gennaro finished, the tactical part of his brain firing on all cylinders. "A forced extraction, but Nyx is the matriarch. She won't let her prized possession go on a simple voice command." "She won't," I agreed, my heart pounding with a cold, terrifying certainty. "Not for anything except one, me." Gennaro's face darkened. "No." "Listen to me," I insisted, grabbing his arm. His jacket was still on my shoulders. "It's the only way. Nyx wants me. Varen confirmed it. I'm the last witness from Freight 9. I'm the loose end she needs to tie to become untouchable. She'll trade. She'll move Cell. If she thinks she's finally getting the Sparrow—" "I am not," he said, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "Trading you for anyone. Not even her. That's not the promise I made." "It's not a trade," I argued, my voice fierce. "It's a trap we use Echo to set up a handoff. Me for Cell, but we rig it. We use Yara to create a diversion. We use Evo to take the transport team. We get both of us out. It's the only way she'll believe the order is real. It's the only way she'll move Cell out into the open. You said it yourself. You protect what's yours. Then let me help you protect her. This is the only way." He stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. I saw the war in his eyes, the protector versus the tactician, the man who just found his sister versus the man who was starting to feel something for me. The tactician won, barely. "Yara, the location, he said, his jaw tight. "Meridian Cold Storage," Yara said, her fingers flying. "It's Varen's primary hub, the V mark on the corks. It's the most logical, neutral transfer point. Nyx will buy it." Meridian. I breathed. The place I'd interned, the place I knew. It was perfect. The drive was silent. The rain was the only sound. We were a small, dark island moving through a sea of enemies. We parked a block away from the massive, windowless, cube-like building of Meridian Cold Storage. The air was frigid. Before we got out, Gennaro turned to me. The emergency lights from the dashboard cast his face in shadows. "Mara." He pressed something into my hand. It was cold, heavy, and balanced. I opened my fingers. It was a butterfly knife, its casing a dark, pearlescent gray. It was beautiful. "Cells," he said, his voice rough. "She was never without it." I looked closer. Engraved in the steel, elegant and sharp, was a single letter L. Not for Cell, for Linwood, for Little Cloud. My head snapped up. "I had Yara make it," he said, his voice low. "From the schematics for the Calder Pins tools. It's a promise, the one I made. You don't just wait for me to protect you. You fight with me. You come back to me." My fingers closed around the cold steel. It felt perfect, like it was made for me. "I'm coming back, Gennaro," I vowed, "and we're bringing her with us." We didn't go in the front. We went in through a technical well Evo had on his blueprints, a circular shaft that dropped us into the sub-basement. The cold was instantaneous, a physical, biting thing. A thick, white mist hung in the air, swirling around our feet, and then the sound. Thump, see-cheech, shh, thump, chee, shh. The massive condenser units, they were all around us, unseen in the fog, pounding out a rhythmic, mechanical beat, like a giant, frozen, hungry heart. "We're in position," Gennaro whispered into his radio. "Yara, send the signal." We moved into the main blast freezer, a cavernous room filled with towering shelves of frozen goods. I was the bait. Gennaro and Evo were my shadows, melting into the fog. We waited. A heavy door hissed open at the far end of the room. A figure emerged from the fog, silhouetted against the light. It wasn't a transport team. It was a woman. She was tall, impossibly elegant, wrapped in a black leather coat that seemed to drink the light. Her hair was pure silver, pulled back in a bun so tight it looked painful. She walked toward us, her heels clicking on the frozen concrete. She stopped, just out of arm's reach. "Mr. Caruso," she said. Her voice was like silk, smooth, expensive, and strong enough to strangle. "What a predictable disappointment. I thought you'd be more clever." This was Matriarch Nyx. "On the exchange." "Nyx," Gennaro said, his voice flat. He stepped out from the shadows, placing himself between us. "My sister for the girl." "Transfer authorized," Yara's voice whispered in our earpieces, echo, mimicking Nyx's own command protocols. "All units reroute transport, Meridian, now." Outside, faintly, we heard the rumble of a heavy truck engine. It was working. Cell was on her way. Nyx smiled. It was a cold, beautiful, terrifying thing. A lovely plan, a ghost in the machine. Cell was always too sentimental. Wasn't she writing little AIs to protect her strays? She took a step closer, not to him, but to me. She tilted her head as if sniffing the air. Her smile widened. But she was sloppy. She forgot I know everything about my enemies. She looked past me, her cold eyes finding Gennaro in the mist. And you, Mr. Caruso, you have such a distinctive scent. My blood turned to ice. Sandalwood, she mused, and bergamot, the same exact scent that you left on the girl's jacket. She tapped her own earpiece, a small black pearl. The transfer is a fake, she purred. All units converge. Kill them all, and bring me the sparrow. The trap wasn't ours. It had been hers all along. The trap snapped shut. Nix's voice, calm and melodic, was a death sentence. Bring me the sparrow. The fog in the blast freezer didn't just obscure, it amplified. Heavy doors slammed shut at both ends of the cavernous room, not with the sound of a lock, but with the hiss of heavy hydraulics. We weren't just trapped, we were sealed in. Yara, Gennaro roared, shoving me behind him, his uninjured hand finding mine, his grip a band of steel. I know, Yara's voice came from our earpiece, tight with panic. She's locking us in. I'm trying to fight her, but she's good. Dark figures emerged from the mist, shadows detaching themselves from the towering shelves. Orpheus operatives, at least a dozen, fanning out, their weapons equipped with laser sights that cut the white fog like red scalpels. Yara, freeze the magnetic locks. Now, Gennaro commanded. Freezing them, sir. That'll trap us with them. Do it, he yelled. A high-pitched whine built, and the heavy thud of the doors trying to slide open was met with the groaning strain of locked-down magnets. Yara had turned the room into a sealed box. We were trapped with the killers, but so were they. The first shot was a muffled phut. Lights! Evo's voice was a bark. 3 more phuts, and the red laser sights vanished. Evo wasn't aiming for the men. He was aiming for the high-intensity sensor lights, plunging the room into a deeper, colder, swirling chaos. The only illumination came from the faint green emergency strips on the floor. It was mayhem, the air filled with the quiet, deadly reports of silenced weapons. Gennaro didn't fire. He was a wall of wool and muscle, his entire body a shield for mine, pulling me backward, using the massive condenser unit, the giant, throbbing heart of the room as cover. Stay down, he ordered, his voice a low vibration against my ear. They're flanking us, Evo called out from the darkness. And then, she was there. Matriarch Nix. She hadn't moved. She stood in the center of the freezer, untouched, the fog swirling around her leather-clad form as if it was afraid of her. This is beneath you! Gennaro, she called out, her voice cutting through the sounds of the fight, hiding behind a child. But then, you always did have a weakness for strays, didn't you? It's what cost you your sister? She was taken, Gennaro yelled back, his voice raw with a pain that had nothing to do with the firefight. Was she? Nix's laugh was like breaking glass. She wasn't taken. Gennaro, she left. She came to me. A new figure stepped out of the fog, standing beside Nix. My heart stopped. It was her, the girl from the photograph. Older, harder, her face etched with a pain I recognized, but it was unmistakably Cell. Her dark, wild hair was shorter. Her eyes were not kind. They were on fire, and they were fixed on Gennaro. Cell. He breathed. The word was a prayer, a wound. Don't, Cell spat, her voice laced with a venom that chilled me more than the freezer. She was holding a knife, the twin of the one he had given me. Don't you dare say my name, not after what you did. Gennaro was stunned. He actually took a step out from behind the cover. Cell, I've been looking for you for 12 years. Looking for me or looking for your lost little soldier, she laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You used me. You turned me into a weapon, a tool to clean up your messes. And when I got too close, when I tried to save her, she pointed the knife at me. You sold me out. You traded me to Varen to secure the Meridian deal. What? No, that's a lie. Gennaro was shaking. His composure, his ironclad control, completely gone. I heard the recording, she screamed, her voice breaking. Varen played it for me, your voice. The girl is a liability. Handle her. You cut me loose. You left me to die. Nix is the one who saved me. She gave me a purpose, to tear down the rotten, hypocritical empire you built on the backs of strays you pretend to protect. It was a nightmare. The firefight had stopped. Everyone, Orpheus and us, was watching this agonizing, personal execution. Nix stood by, smiling, her trap sprung. She wasn't just here to kill us. She was here to break him. Cell, please, Gennaro was pleading. That's not, I would never... Sir, Yara's voice, desperate, in our ears. Echo Cell's AI, it's fighting me. But it's found something. It's found the original file. The recording she's talking about. It's, oh, God, sir, it's not what she thinks. Play it, Gennaro commanded, his voice a ragged whisper. Play it now. Public, loud. A burst of static, and then a voice. Varen Holtz. The girl is a liability. Handle her. Cell's face twisted in triumph. See? Wait, Gennaro said, his eyes on his sister. Then a new voice on the recording. Gennaro's. That's not what I said, Varen. I said, the girl is a Caruso. Handle her protection. You will move half my network to keep her safe. You will bury her file, bury her name, and if one hair on her head is harmed, I will burn your entire operation to the ground. Am I clear? A pause, then Varen's voice, oily and cowed. Clear. The recording clicked off. The silence in the freezer was absolute. It was so cold. I could hear the tiny ice crystals forming in the air. Cell stared. Her knife hand, which had been so steady, began to tremble. She looked from Gennaro's tortured face to Nix's calm, smiling one. He faked it, Cell whispered, but the doubt was a gaping chasm in her voice. Echo. Yara's voice was soft in our ears. Echo is Cell's AI. It just played its own protected log, the one Varen couldn't erase. It's the truth. Cell. Cell's face had just crumpled, the rage, the fire, the venom it all drained away, leaving a hollow, agonizing grief. The knife slipped from her fingers, clattering loudly on the frozen concrete floor. You were protecting me, she whispered to Gennaro. All this time. Always, he breathed, taking a step toward her. How sentimental. Nix's voice was bored. She raised a small, elegant pistol from the folds of her leather coat and fired. Not at Cell. At me. No? It all happened in a split second. The bang was deafening in the enclosed space. Gennaro wasn't a man. He was a force. He lunged, not at Nix, but at me, his body colliding with mine, shoving me back against the condenser. I felt the impact, a hot, violent punch, but I felt it through him. He grunted a sharp, choked sound. His body went rigid against mine. Gennaro? He looked down, his eyes wide with a strange surprise. Then he looked at me. He was still shielding me, his arms locked around me. Are you? He started, his voice strained. You're hit, I whispered, my voice shaking. I looked down. A dark, ugly stain was spreading across his white shirt, just under his ribs. Oh, God, you're bleeding. A new alarm, high-pitched and frantic, blared through the warehouse, not a fire alarm, a chemical one. The burn protocol, Yara shrieked. She's initiated a thermal cleanse. She's cooking us, the system is flash heating the coolant and pumping oxygen out. We have maybe 3 minutes. Heat. A sudden, suffocating wave of it. The fog didn't melt. It turned into a scalding, wet steam. Gennaro, I said, my panic rising. He slid down, his knees buckling, but he never let go of me. No. The trembling girl was gone. My training, my focus, the adrenaline, it all clicked into place. I ripped off his jacket, the jacket he gave me, and tore a long strip from my own uniform shirt. Pressure, I ordered, shoving the fabric into his hand and pressing it hard against the wound. Hold that. Hold it now. My hands weren't shaking. My voice was clear. I was a student, but I was a student of this precision, action. Evo Cell, I yelled. Get him, we have to move. The data, Yara screamed, her voice desperate. Echo, it's found the central core. Nix's entire network. It's right here. I can copy it, but I need time. I can't save the data and get you out. The choice. The data that could end Orpheus, or the man who was bleeding out in my arms. It wasn't a choice. Forget the data. Yara, get us out now. No, wait, Yara said, her voice frantic. The bottle, the conveyor Mara, the Argent number 7 Echo can compress the file. It can download the entire network into the circuitry of a single bottle. The one we were going to use for the trade. It's on the main conveyor line, the one that leads to the river. Do it, Gennaro grunted, his face pale. It's done, Yara yelled. The file is compressed. It's on its way. It's gone. Nix can't get it. Now, out, I screamed. The heat was unbearable. It was hard to breathe. The roof. Ivo was there, his face grim. He and a stunned, silent Cell grabbed Gennaro, hauling him to his feet. This way, the maintenance shaft. We half ran, half dragged Gennaro through the scalding steam. The Orpheus agents were gone, vanished, obeying their queen and leaving us to cook. We burst through a maintenance door and into a narrow, dark shaft. We climbed, rung by rung. Ivo and Cell pulling Gennaro's weight, me pushing from below. The heat was rising, chasing us, a solid wall of it. Ivo kicked open the roof hatch. Cold, wet, glorious. The Greyhaven storm hit us, a wall of freezing rain that felt like heaven. We collapsed onto the wet gravel of the roof, gasping, the scalding air of the freezer billowing up from the hatch behind us. Distant sirens wailed, growing closer. Annika Rowe, her 48 hours cut short. We huddled under the small awning of a ventilation unit, a pathetic, broken, soaked huddle. Gennaro was slumped against the wall, his breathing shallow. Cell was just staring, at him, at me. I ignored her. I ignored the rain. I went to him. My hands, now steady, unwrapped the blood-soaked makeshift bandage. The wound was high on his side, a deep, ugly graze, bleeding too much, but it wasn't a death blow. It went through, I whispered, my voice trembling with relief. It's clean. I took his jacket, the one I'd been wearing all night, and folded it into a thick, clean pressure pad. I pressed it to the wound, hard. He hissed, his eyes squeezing shut. When he opened them, they were clear, and they were focused only on me. He didn't say thank you. He didn't say anything. His eyes, dark and soft and full of a feeling I couldn't name, said it all. His uninjured hand, the one that wasn't covered in his own blood, came up. He didn't touch his wound. He touched my cheek, his thumb brushing away the rain. At the lockdown, Mag, he whispered, his voice hoarse, the words costing him. At the tower. I just nodded, my throat too thick to speak. It wasn't just to catch them, Mara. His eyes held mine. It was to keep you safe, in my sight, where I could see you. My heart, which had been a cold, hard knot of fear, just broke open. I heard a small, sharp intake of breath. Cell, she was watching us. She was watching me tend to him. My hands sure, my gaze locked with his. She was watching him look at me like that. I didn't break his gaze. I was his protector now. Cell looked at her own hands, empty. Then she looked at me, and, for the first time, she nodded. A single, sharp, exhausted gesture. It was an understanding, an acceptance, a passing of the guard. The stray he'd saved was now saving him. The 48 hours Annika Rowe had given us were a lifetime. We were in one of Gennaro's secure penthouses, high above the rain-washed city, not the Luma Tower, a real home, his home. He was alive, but he was wounded. His side was stitched and tightly bound, a constant, painful reminder of how close I'd come to losing him. Cell was there, a ghost in the daylight, her eyes haunted, flickering between the brother she'd regained and the new, fragile reality she'd woken up in. Yara and Ivo were our counsel, our armor. We had the bottle Yara had saved the single Argent number 7, carrying the compressed, encrypted entirety of Nix's empire, but it was locked, and Nix was still out there, a spider in the center of her web. We were running out of time. Gennaro, pale and leaning heavily on a cane I hadn't known he owned, set the final trap. His voice was hoarse, but it held the old iron. "We're going back," he announced. We all stared. "Back where, sir?" Ivo asked. "The Luma Tower." He looked at me, his eyes dark. She didn't get what she came for. She didn't get the data, and she didn't get the sparrow. She'll come back for one of them. We're going to give her a chance at both. It was the single most arrogant, brazen, and terrifying plan I had ever heard. He announced a reopening, a BCI-sanctioned event to prove the city was safe. It was a lie. The building was a mousetrap, and we were the cheese. The main hall felt different. The ghosts of that night were everywhere. I saw myself, a girl in a stiff uniform, carrying a tray. I saw Gennaro, a king on his throne. It felt like 100 years ago. Annika Rowe was there, her face a mask of controlled fury, her tactical team sweeping every corner. Sel and Yara were in the security room, a new command center. Ivo was a shadow at Gennaro's side, and I was just me, standing beside him, near the massive chrome sculpture that had dominated the room. My earpiece, the one Yara had modified to receive Echo's frequency, crackled, not with a voice, with a whisper. "Little Cloud Jessa is the key, listen to the lock." My blood ran cold. "Gennaro, Yara, Echo is here. She's talking about my mother." Yara's voice was tight in my ear. "I hear it, Mara. It's cross-referencing. Jessa Linwood, Orpheus, Cipher Technician defected? Oh my God. Mara, your mother, she wasn't just a refugee, she was one of them." I felt the blood drain from my face. "My mom..." "She was their lead cryptographer," Gennaro said, his voice grim. He'd found the same intel in Varen's files. He knew. She built their entire data vault, Mara, and when she ran, she took the one thing they couldn't replace, the key. "But the key is the lullaby." "No," he said, his eyes locking on mine. "The lullaby is the key. But she didn't just take the song, she took the voice. It's a biometric lock. Mara, voice, pitch, and cadence. She took you. It hit me. The poison, the wine, the entire night. It was never for you," I whispered, horrified. "The derived cyanate it was for me. Nyx wanted to kill the key holder. She was trying to destroy the only person in the world who could unlock her vault." "And the vault," Yara breathed, her voice filled with awe, "is in that sculpture. It's been hiding in plain sight this whole time." "Listen to the lock," Echo whispered again. "The lullaby," I said to Gennaro. "It's the only way." He nodded, his good hand gripping his cane. "Do it." I stepped forward, my hands trembling. I stood in front of the massive chrome loops. I closed my eyes. I didn't see the BCI agents. I didn't see the bloodstains on the floor. I saw my mother, her kind face, her hands, baking bread. I heard her humming. And I sang. My voice was small but clear. "The river runs dark, but the mountain remembers the sun." I sang the simple, haunting melody she had taught me, the words from a language I barely knew, but a tune that lived in my bones. For a moment, nothing. Then a soft, high-pitched click from inside the sculpture. A thin, seamless panel slid open, revealing a glowing data port. "Yara now," Gennaro commanded. "Yara." From the control room, slam the data stream. "Echo is merging. The bottle's data, the vault's data. It's all one. It's decrypting Mara. I have everything Nyx's entire network, her accounts, her agents, her kill orders. I'm broadcasting it, live, to Anika's console, to the world." A truly lovely song. The voice was like silk and ice. Nyx. She stood on the grand staircase, just as I remembered, flanked by her personal guard, her leather coat swirling. "But the performance," she purred, "is over." She raised her hand. I didn't see her press a button. I just heard a sound, a high-pitched, metallic shriek from above, from the massive, beautiful, glass-paneled ceiling. "Drones!" Ivo yelled, shoving Gennaro back. "Glass cutter drones!" The ceiling didn't just break. It detonated. 1,000 high-frequency whines. The sky rained glass, a tidal wave of razor-sharp, tempered shards, thousands of pounds of it, cascaded down, aimed directly at the center of the hall, aimed directly at me. I didn't even have time to scream. Mara. Gennaro's roar. He was injured. He was pale. But he was faster than I ever could have imagined. He wasn't a man. He was a projectile. He launched himself at me, his arms locking around my head, his back to the sky. He twisted, using his body, his entire body, as a shield. The sound was a deafening, shattering apocalypse. Glass, like a million knives, hammered against his back. I felt his whole body jerk and seize against me as the shards found their mark. He didn't make a sound. He just held. A hot, sharp pain flared in my own shoulder. A piece that had gotten past him. But he had taken the worst of it. He had taken it all. Echo now Cell's voice, screaming from the control room. The high-pitched whine of the drones didn't stop. It changed. The swarm that hadn't shattered the ceiling pivoted in mid-air. Like a single furious metal organism, they turned and shot, like a hail of bullets, straight at Nyx and her team on the stairs. It was a massacre. She had no defense. The main doors of the Luma Tower exploded inward, not glass, steel. BCI tactical teams poured in, Annika Rowe right behind them, her face a mask of stone. Nyx, freeze on the ground now. The war was over. But mine wasn't. Gennaro, I whimpered. He was still holding me, but his weight was crushing. He slumped, his knees giving out. We collapsed to the floor in a shower of broken glass. Gennaro, I scrambled, pushing him off me, his back. His suit was shredded. It was dark, wet and glistening with embedded shards. His shirt, it wasn't white anymore. It was a deep, terrifying red. Not one wound, a dozen. His eyes were open, but they were empty, unfocused. He was going into shock. He was leaving me. No, you don't. The fear, the grief, it turned into a rage. I grabbed his face, my hands shaking, smearing his skin with his own blood. Gennaro, look at me. Stay with me, you promised. His eyes found mine, a faint flicker. Mara, he whispered. I'm right here, I cried, the tears finally breaking, streaming down my face. I'm right here. Don't you leave me. Don't you dare leave me. I pressed my forehead to his, just as he had done for me in the dark. You are not dying. I am your anchor. You stay here. His gaze locked on mine. He held it. It was a lifeline. His good hand, the one that wasn't bleeding, came up and gripped my wrist. It was impossibly tight. He was fighting. He was staying... Medics, Annika Rowe was screaming. Medics here now and get him in cuffs. No! I surged to my feet, my own shoulders screaming in protest. I didn't care. I stalked to the podium, past the tactical teams, and grabbed the live microphone. My name is Mara Linwood, and my voice boomed, raw and shaking, echoing through the shattered hall. It silenced the BCI. It silenced the press flooding in. It silenced everyone. For 12 years, the Orpheus Circle has been bleeding this city. Tonight, their matriarch, Nyx, tried to kill me. She tried to kill all of us. I pointed to the massive screen, where Nyx's entire network was scrolling. Now public domain. That is Nyx's organization. Her money, her agents, it was secured by his team. He is wounded. My voice cracked. Because he shielded me, an innocent civilian with his own body. You didn't catch Nyx. Supervisor, he did. I locked eyes with Annika. You want justice? Or do you want a headline? I am formally requesting a conditional immunity agreement. You get the Orpheus network. All of it. The money Varen stole. Every dime. In exchange. Gennaro Caruso's actions tonight are recognized. He turns over his assets. Clean. Annika was trapped. The press was recording. She had her victory. Gennaro, supported by Evo and a sobbing Cell, had struggled to his feet. He looked at me, his eyes blazing with a fierce, burning pride that hurt more than my wound. We accept, he said, his voice weak but unbreakable. The Caruso Syndicate is dissolved, effective immediately. All assets will be transferred to a new fund under BCI supervision. He looked at me, a flicker of a smile. the gray vault, to pay the debts, the mercy bluffs, all of them. He had given it all away, for me, for Sel, for us. They led Nyx past us, her face a mask of cold fury, her hands cuffed. She stopped, her eyes finding mine. A pretty speech, little sparrow, she hissed, but every lock has a copy. I'll be out, and I'll find you. I met her gaze. I was done being afraid. Not this one, I said, my voice quiet. This lock only opens to my mother's lullaby, and she only ever sang it to me. They dragged her away. The rain had finally stopped. The night was cold, clean. I stood on the Luma Tower's private rooftop, the one we'd been trying to get to. My shoulder was bandaged. The city was quiet. I heard a single footstep, Gennaro, and he was in a clean shirt, his arm in a sling, his back and side heavily bandaged. He looked like he'd been through a war. We stood in silence, just watching the city breathe. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and gently, so gently, touched the bandage on his shoulder. You were reckless, I whispered. You were worth it, he replied, his voice rough. He turned, his good hand coming up to cup my face. His thumb brushed my cheek. He leaned in, slowly, giving me every second to pull away. I leaned in. The kiss was not like the one in the dark. That was a question. This was an answer. It was slow and deep and full of a desperate, profound relief. It was gentle, but it held the promise of forever. He pulled back, smiling, a real, tired smile, and rested his forehead against mine. I'm sorry, he breathed. For what? For almost leaving you. You didn't, I whispered, closing my eyes. I'm your anchor, remember? We rebuilt. Sel, fierce and finally free, took over the new Grey Vault Foundation, with Yara as her head of tech, turning Echo into a force for good, Evo. Grim as ever, started a new security firm, training community protection officers. Annika Rowe, true to her word, took possession of Echo's data core, classifying it as the most valuable digital witness in history. And Gennaro, he was just Gennaro. We were standing in front of a new apartment, a beautiful, high-ceilinged place overlooking the river. The old life was packed away. My mom was safe, her debts paid, her clinic funded for the next 10 years. He pressed a key into my hand. I have a bad habit, he said, his voice soft, of locking doors. I smiled, looking at the simple brass key. This one is different. This time, he said, his hand finding mine. I'm locking a door to open a new life, with you. I looked at his face, at the city, at the key, in the distance. The first morning light was breaking, washing the glass of the Luma Tower clean. We held hands, and together, we stepped over the threshold, leaving the ghosts of the old world behind. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from? Let me know in the comments so we can connect and you can share your thoughts. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, Mafia Boss Stories, and like this video. And if you enjoyed this journey, please support us by hitting that hype button. It helps get this story out to more listeners just like you.